60 Minutes with Angela starts right now.
Specifically, is there a rift between the president and the former governor of Lagos State, Bola Tinubu? Is there a rift between the president and the hierarchy of the All Progressives Congress, his party? Well, hello and welcome. This is 60 Minutes with me, Angela Ajitumobi. Thank you for joining me on the program today. And so it's that time of the year again, another quarterly look at the activities of Nigeria's President, Muhammadu Buhari. Joining me today on the program is his special advisor on media and publicity, the former managing director of Nigeria's Sun newspapers, and the former president of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. So, join me after the break. I'm counting down 60 minutes with FEMI Adesina, special advisor to Nigeria's President Buhari on media and publicity. Welcome back. Welcome, Mr. Adesina. Thank you very much for coming back on the program for our quarterly update with you.
It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
All right. In June this year, 2016, of course, Nigeria fell officially into recession after we've had negative growth in the first and second quarters of the year. Now that the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics has released data showing another depletion in our growth, negative growth again this third quarter, that makes it the third consecutive decline this year. Is the president considering a review of our present economic policies?
Well, when you have this kind of situation that we have,
Yes.
it would be a mistake to have knee-jerk reactions. It will be better to outline what you want to do and keep at it. Because when you have outlined what you think is what will bring succor,
Yes.
it takes some time for it to yield.
Yes.
So it's better you stay at it.
Right.
The president, along with those who run the economy, have mapped out what they want to do, and they had said that from the end of the fourth quarter, we'll begin to see some good signs.
Right.
And most likely in the first quarter of 2017, something positive will happen.
All right.
So if you're heading in that direction, you should then avoid panic.
And so doing anything now will be panicking.
Yes.
All right, let's look at reactions from two people. First, former Minister for Education. She was also Minister for Solid Minerals Development and former Vice President of the World Bank, Obi Ezekwesili. She said on Thursday, the 24th of November, that even if former President Goodluck Jonathan failed to do something about the impending recession, the minute President Muhammadu Buhari came into office on the 29th of May 2015, he should have launched what she called comprehensive fiscal stabilization programs. And she cites two major reasons for that. She says, first of all, for almost 1 year, the government delayed prime action on the fuel subsidy regime despite its aggravating import on fiscal imbalance. And she also said over the same period, the federal government delayed the right action on the exchange rate policy in spite of the deleterious effects that it was having on foreign reserves, the value of the naira. And of course, inflation, and we all know the effect that inflation would have. So what is the government's response to these 2 points that she has raised?
Well, government does not have to respond to individuals.
Right.
If you respond to all the individuals
To
who
everyone.
have opinions, you then do nothing else.
Yes.
More so when those individuals have rights to their own opinions. And their opinion does not necessarily translate to the gospel.
Right.
It's their opinion and they have a right to it.
Yes.
You will find some other economists who will come from another direction on that same issue.
There's never one answer.
Oh, there's never one answer. So.
All right. Then the other response I wanted to touch on was that of foremost economist Bismarck Rewane. He says that policies need to complement one another. We need increased stimulus, increased injection, but we cannot do this with the current level of interest rates. He also says that the foreign exchange market has to be reformed as it is presently constituted. He calls it a bridge to nowhere.
Yeah, Bismarck Rewane is somebody I personally respect.
Yes.
I respect his opinion. When he speaks, I listen very well. And I know in the life of this administration, there have been a number of economic retreats.
Yes.
And Bismarck Rewane had always featured. I know of 2 where he had featured.
Yes.
And I believe the government takes his views quite
Seriously,
serious.
yes.
Quite serious. So
Okay.
that I believe that those who handle the economy will take stock of and know what to do.
Okay, and so what is the situation now with the $29.9 billion loan that the president is seeking? A lot of people think that a cat and mouse game is being played between the presidency and the Senate, especially, approval that the president needs for that loan.
In Nigeria, we seem to politicize everything. And when your economy is in dire straits, as
Yes.
Nigeria's is now, you don't need to play politics with it at all. The president asked for that loan, almost $30 billion loan.
Yes.
It was to cover a 3-year period.
Right.
And the request was made to the Senate. Now the Senate said there were not enough information
Accompanying that request. Okay.
And so it returned it. As we speak, I know that the needful has been done and a request to be made again to the Senate.
What do you then say to economists like Professor Sheriff Jean Teller, one of the economists I interview regularly on the program of Olabisi Onabanjo University? He says it will only create problems for the coming generations because he doesn't think there is a long-term national plan for that loan.
Yes, I read his views
Yes.
a couple of days ago. But you know, economists never all agree with one another. Some economists propounded the idea of that loan.
Yes.
And that's an economist speaking against it. That shows you that they come from different directions. And so you can't say pick one direction and say this is the direction.
Yes.
Yes. The truth is that when the economy goes into recession like Nigeria has done, you often need to also spend through the recession.
Yeah.
And that's what Nigeria is intending to do.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why we need that loan, because it will stimulate the economy again to become productive.
Okay, and so while receiving the governance support group most recently, the president said that there will be no padding under his watch, especially in the budget 2017. But I remember Speaker of the House of Representatives, Yakubu Dogara, saying, and I'm quoting him now, "Tinkering with the budget should not amount to or be regarded as padding. No member of the National Assembly can be investigated or charged to court for performing his constitutional responsibility of lawmaking." End of quote. In other words, adding or subtracting from the budget is tinkering, and it's part of their duties as members of the National Assembly to tinker with the budget.
Tinkering is not the same thing as padding, really. When the National Assembly tinkers with the budget, it's
Yes.
within their constitutional duties.
Right.
They are just performing the role the Constitution has spelled out for them. They are the ones that have the power to appropriate. But when they pad, they go to hide certain sums under bogus or nebulous projects.
Yes.
With the intent of using those funds for themselves when eventually they are
the money is released.
That's what happens with padding. The National Assembly can tinker with the budget, and they do tinker with it. But when they go to hide funds and projects where they can retrieve them from later, that is the one called padding.
And how is the president going to achieve that? A lot of people feel that he should have done more to show public support, perhaps, for the former chairman of the House Committee on Appropriations, Abdulmumin Jibril. When he made all these allegations, the president hasn't really been seen to be involved in the details of that matter.
Yes, because I speak for the president, and like you've said, he has not said anything about it. If he has not said, I cannot say. But we also know that the security agencies have begun to investigate the allegations from Jibrin much more seriously now.
Yes.
So I'm sure there will come a time when the president himself will speak
on it. And now that Jibrin is on suspension, is the president not worried that with the next budget there will be nobody to blow the whistle if padding takes place again?
No, because how did the padding come to light last year? It started with when the Minister of Health, Professor Isaac Adewale, was asked to defend the budget of his ministry in a Senate committee.
Yes.
They gave him the document, he looked at it, and he said, "What are you asking me to defend? This is not what we presented." The president says it often that he was at home that evening, and incidentally he was watching the news when he saw Professor Adewale, so he paid extra attention.
Yes.
And when he heard the professor say, "There's nothing to defend because this was not what I presented," and the next day he sent for him.
Yes.
And that was how the whole padding thing came into the limelight.
Yes.
Because what the health ministry submitted was not what they brought to him. The things had been yanked out, and rogue items had been brought in, and so the health minister then denounced it.
Called the attention of all the other ministers
and
as
then
well.
all the other ministers now began to raise alarm one after the other that what they brought to us to defend was not what we had submitted originally. So this year, the budget will first come to the Federal Executive Council. It will be looked at, gone through with fine-tooth comb.
Yes.
And so if it is eventually presented and something outrageous is done to it,
something looks different.
Yes.
I want to go to the matter of the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo. On Wednesday, November 23rd, in Lagos, the first Akintola Williams annual lecture, he was speaking to President Muhammadu Buhari. He says, "Fix the economy as you promised to do during your campaign, rather than express frustration at the gloomy economic situation." I want to quote him so that we get it in perspective. "I understand President Buhari's frustration on the state of the economy inherited by him. It was the same reason and situation that brought about a cry for change. Otherwise, there would be no need for change if it was all nice and rosy. Now that we have had change, let us move forward to have progress through a comprehensive economic policy and program that is intellectually, strategically, and philosophically based." End of quote. Will you respond to this?
I'll just say it's an opinion, but opinion coming from a former military head of state and from a former two-term president. Yes. He has a right to that opinion. Now, between President Buhari and former President Obasanjo, there is great deal of respect.
Right.
Great deal, I must say.
What do you say to those who think that the honeymoon is over between them now?
They cannot determine. They cannot. For instance, when couples go on honeymoon, they are the ones that know when the honeymoon is over, not outsiders. Not outsiders.
Yes.
I know President Buhari will never trade words
With him.
With former president. He will not.
People say that in criticizing 16 years of the People's Democratic Party, he is inadvertently, either knowingly or unknowingly, also castigating the administration of former President Obasanjo. You think perhaps he will withdraw that in the spirit of honeymooning?
Well, it's only the president himself that can react to that.
Yes.
If he has reacted to it in my presence, I didn't know his mind, but he has not.
Yes.
So I do not know his mind in that.
Join us again after the break.
Nice question.
Angela, that's a great question.
It's a good question.
It is difficult to respond to that question.
That is a serious question.
Angela, that is a very great question.
Great question, Angela.
You know, Angela, that's a very difficult question.
That's a great question, Angela.
Okay, that's a great question.
Angela, that's a tough one for me.
That's a good question. Good question.
I love to ask questions. I think it's what I do best. You see, I think that the fastest way to learn anything is to ask questions. The right questions. Questions that help you get to the heart of the matter.
60 Minutes with Angela. Again, answers to every question you always wanted to ask.
Welcome back. If you've just joined us, it's 60 Minutes with me, Angela Ajitumobi. On my hot seat today, Special Advisor to Nigeria's President Buhari on Media and Publicity, FEMI Adesina. So let's cast our minds back to October this year, 2016. Specifically, Tuesday, the 11th day of October, BBC Hausa service relayed to the world an interview recorded with our First Lady Aisha Buhari while she was in London. She said first she might not back President Buhari in the next election unless he shakes up his government. She also said the president did not know many top government appointees and that many appointees do not share the vision of the APC or its manifesto, because she had received complaints from concerned APC members. So, is she right? Does the president not know many of his appointees? Have they been imposed on him by political permutations, perhaps?
Well, there are certain things that should be off limits to aides. And one of those things should be the family of your principal.
Yes.
One should also be maybe the status of his health, except he has told you to speak on this, and certain other things.
Yes.
This is strictly family and is off limits. It would be impudent of me to begin to talk about it.
All right, but I'm sure you'll be able to talk about his reaction to that interview.
Yes.
On Friday, the 14th of October, while still in Germany. He said, I don't know exactly what party my wife belongs to. Actually, she belongs in the kitchen, the living room, and the other rooms in my house. And I remember the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, gave him a short glare, and then she laughed. You know, and I thought, well, with the laugh, perhaps she recognized that he was also being humorous in his reaction to that.
Don't you also think it was humorous?
I mean, the number of comments we've had about the other room.
The other room. Don't you think it was humorous? It was. And the truth is that the home is not complete without all these rooms.
Yes.
Okay.
But we know we subsequently saw her go abroad to represent Nigeria almost immediately after that interview, and that kind of reassured
Belgium.
Belgium.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
A lot of us felt reassured that, okay, you know, there's still peace on the home front, even though our assertive First Lady has been able to voice her opinion.
It is still family. Off limits.
Mr. Adesina, you're avoiding my questions today. So, you know, following from that, the fact that she said he doesn't know his appointees and all that, I thought, okay, it's almost 2 years now, December, almost Christmas now, it'll be about 18 months,
18 months,
since he became president. Is there a cabinet reshuffle or change in the horizon?
Yeah, one thing I'd like to say about that is this. when a president assembles a team of people to work with him, he naturally will give them timelines and deliverables. This is what you must achieve at this time. And periodically brief me, let me know how you proceed and all that. Therefore, at a certain point, a president is the one who can then assess his appointees against the benchmark of the timelines he gave them and the deliverables he set for them.
Yes.
So if the president does that kind of assessment and he thinks, well, let me tinker with this team, let me move this one to this place, let me drop this one and replace him or her and all that.
Yes.
Therefore, it is the prerogative of the president to do it because he assembled that team.
Right.
And he is the one who can best assess them. People from outside can give opinions.
Express their opinions
Yes,
that some
yes.
ministers are not working.
Yes, but they don't have the helicopter view that the president has. They don't know what timelines were given.
Yes.
They don't know what deliverables were given. Let me give an illustration from soccer. I remember that must have been in the 80s when ICC Shooting Stars was at its peak. They had one crucial match and Coach Adeboyoni Bide was handling the team and Segun Odebami was in the team. Later, he explained what he did in that match. People said Segun Odebami was just running around the field in that match and he didn't
Perform.
He
Yes.
didn't perform.
Yes.
But later, the coach came to explain. I think it was against Zamalek.
Yeah.
And because they knew Segun Odebami right from their first encounter in 1976
Yes.
when they lost to Shooting Stars. So they knew how dangerous Segun could be with the ball. So the coach had told him, just run around the
All
field
over the
so that they will be running after you. And then some other people can use
able
the
to
opportunity.
score.
Yeah, exactly. To the onlooker, Segun didn't perform. But to the coach, he was playing according to instruction. So that is the same thing with the president and his cabinet. Do
Yes.
you know what the president has given the minister to accomplish? And do you know how far that minister has gone with that thing? So it's the president that can assess properly.
The president has also spoken of progress in agriculture and solid minerals sector. Let's start with agriculture. I was reading you recently saying, you know, soon we're going to be exporting rice.
Yes.
He's looking at other commodities like cocoa and so on. So can you expand on the progress that the president talks about in agriculture?
Yes, when you are going to point at the achievements of this administration in 18 months, agriculture is one of the areas that can be the poster areas for the administration,
Right.
because a lot of progress has been made. One, the government itself has paid attention to the sector. There has been good funding, good policies,
Right.
and then God himself has been kind to us through nature in that there were good rains this year and the harvest is very good.
Right.
From what we have seen and from what will yet come, the harvest is going to be really, really, really handsome for this year. You can easily make projections because the government, through the CBN, introduced what is called the Anchor Borrowers Program, in
What
which
is that?
rice farmers were brought together like in a cooperative, and then they were funded heavily.
Right.
Heavily.
Like the subsidies we have in the US. Go ahead and produce as much as you can.
Something similar. Something similar. And in 1 year of the Anchor Borrowers program, the result is tremendous.
Right.
And the projection is that in 18 months from now, Nigeria can begin to export rice. Don't forget that rice costs us $2 billion per year.
Yes, to import.
To import. So if we free $2 billion and spend that on education, spend on agriculture, spend on roads, you know the difference it can make. So agric is going very well for Nigeria.
Right. And what about storage facilities? One of the problems that I experience traveling around the country is wastage after harvest. Still, we don't have rails to convey produce from the farms straight to the markets in record time. So what is the president or this administration doing about enhancing the ways in which farmers can benefit maximally from their harvest with good storage facilities?
Yes, we have 33 silos in different parts of the country. At the Federal Executive Council meeting a couple of weeks back, the issue came up that in a day, up to 500 trucks were leaving Nigeria bearing grains to other countries. Like
on the West Coast?
Yes, Mali, Senegal, up to Central African Republic. And the fear was that if we allowed that to continue,
we won't have any food.
No. But if you mentioned the meeting with the governor support group.
Yes.
If you read that statement fully, one of the things the president said was that those who came to buy our grains will not be able to buy up the entire harvest. More so, in those countries too, they are also going to have good harvest. Mali, for instance, is also going to have a good harvest year. So they can't buy up all Nigeria's grains. Don't forget that our farmers, unless they also sell their grains and make money, they may be discouraged and not also farm that same product in the same quantity the next season. So they should be encouraged to sell. But it's been established that no matter how much they buy of these grains, Nigeria will have enough. And the president has also told the agri minister, these 33 silos that we have around the country, make sure you rehabilitate them, get them ready, and you to buy grains and store.
Especially now that we're in a recession. Are we going to be having grains released sometimes to aid?
In this year, this year is about ending. There were about 2 or 3 times that grains were released to certain parts of the country, particularly in the northeast. It was made public then.
All right. And in the solid mineral sector, everyone is looking now towards Dr. Kayode Fayemi, you know, as we hope to diversify our economy. What progress has been made in that ministry, especially with creating access for everyone, for the states especially, to be able to reap benefits from minerals under their soil?
Yes, one thing I must mention about solid minerals is that the gestation period is about 20 to 25 years. Dr. Kayode Fayemi said that at the Federal Executive Council one day. After that meeting, I went to a meeting. I said, "Do you mean we have to wait for 20 years?"
So it's not immediate.
It's not immediate. It's not immediate. But then he said, yes, in the interim, there will be some returns to the country. But before we can get into the boom of solid minerals, it will take about 20 years, 20 to 25 years. But we must start at a point, and this is the point. So you can see that the Buhari administration is not only working for the now, it's also working for the future. Because, of course, President Buhari will not be president when the full yield of the solid minerals come. But nevertheless, it is working to build and develop that sector.
Will it operate essentially like the oil sector, where it is only the federal government that mines oil and gas?
Yes, there was a time that Dr. Fayemi released what he called the roadmap for that sector. So I'm sure by the time we study that roadmap, all that will be clear. If there is the need to amend any law, I'm sure he will also press for that.
Of course, the president spoke recently about the cleansing going on that will lead to a better judiciary. He says when people are sentenced, the federal government's seriousness with the corruption war will not be in doubt. So can I take that to mean that President Buhari supported the raid on judges' residences by the DSS?
In a country, there are certain things that cannot happen unless a president either gives a direct go-ahead or by his body language.
Implied. And this president is good at body language.
He's good at body language. I'm sure the DSS will not have done what the president will object to.
Yes. So are we going to find more of such raids happening within the judiciary?
The raid was not against individuals. It was against corruption. Wherever corruption is discovered, if it would warrant a raid, it may happen. Because there is a war against corruption, and that war is on real time.
The president is sticking with this war. Is he experiencing any backlash from within his inner circle, friends and family, and people telling him to slow down? You know, this thing, you can't do it all in one day, you know, do it piecemeal.
Recall that about 2 weeks ago, the president met with the outgoing American Secretary of State, John Kerry.
Yes.
And he told him that corruption was already fighting back vigorously in Nigeria, but that it's a war he was determined to win, and
Yes.
which the government will win. So you can imagine that, well, there may be pressures. The president himself has not said in what way the fight back is
Yes.
specifically.
Yes.
Or it could come in several ways. It could come through people who want to dissuade him. It will come through subtle threats. It will come through inducement of some of the people fighting the war. It may
Yes.
come in several ways. So all we can be assured of is that, yes, there are pressures and measures to ensure that the anti-corruption war is either slowed down or completely stymied
Yes.
or completely discontinued. But knowing the president,
Yes.
when he makes up his mind, there is hardly any stopping him.
Nothing can shake him.
Hardly any stopping him. This is a man who came to serve and nothing else. No personal aggrandizement is involved in his service to the country.
Yes.
He's just single-minded to effect a change in the country, and nothing will distract him from that. goal.
From that. I want to refer you to a statement by former Second Republic lawmaker Junaid Mohammed, where he talked about a group wielding power within the presidency under President Buhari. He calls it a cabal or mafia or some kind of cult. The personal assistant to the president is Mamandaura's son. He talked about the most influential person in the presidency being the nephew. That's Mamandaura, son of the president's elder brother. He also talked about the state chief of protocol. He says the son-in-law to Mamandaura, and went on and on and on. In Nigeria's history, this administration is showing the worst form of nepotism. What is the presidency's response to that?
The president gave it during the UN General Assembly in September in New York. He had been asked that same question. And
Yes.
the president said, I am the one that ran for president. I went around all the local governments in the country.
Yes.
I was voted for, and I'm the one that run the country. And I think,
And that explains
I
it.
think that answers it.
So all the stories we hear about people wielding influence and deciding who sees who and who gets what.
They don't know the president. I work with him. I know
Yes.
him.
Yes.
I know that he's a man of strong will. He's not a man you can twist. That doesn't mean he's a dictator. He must
Yes.
still buy ideas from different sets of people.
Yes.
But he's a man of his own mind. And he makes up his mind. The direction he wants to go, who he wants to appoint, and many other things.
No one second guesses him. No one nudges him in any direction.
Everybody is nudged in one direction or the other. Even the American president is nudged in a certain direction. What you do with that nudging is what matters.
Is what matters.
Yeah, you must still show that you are the president and the buck stops at your table.
Join us again after the break.
Nice question.
Angela, that's a great question.
It's a good question.
It is difficult to respond to that question.
That is a serious question. Angela, that is a very great question. Great question, Angela.
You know, Angela, that's a very difficult question.
That's a great question, Angela.
Okay, that's a great question.
Angela, that's a tough one for me.
That's a good question. Good question.
I love to ask questions. I think it's what I do best. You see, I think that the fastest way to learn anything is to ask questions. The right questions. Questions that help you get to the heart of the matter.
60 Minutes with Angela. Again, answers to every question you always wanted to ask.
Welcome back. It's my concluding moments now with the Special Advisor to Nigeria's President Buhari on Media and Publicity, FEMI Adesina. I want us to talk about the book launch of October 2, 2016 in honor of the President And the difference in the story of the emergence of this administration. First, the version told by the author, Professor John, and of course the countering of that version by Tunji Bello, who was a former commissioner under the former Lagos State Governor Bola Tinubu. Tunji Bello is also the current secretary to the state government in Lagos. Now, many viewed the difference in narrative as a sign of a rift that had been smoldering for a while behind the scenes. Is there a rift between the president and the hierarchy of the All Progressives Congress, his party?
I think the most important thing on that is that the vice president, whose emergence was at the center of the controversy, has come up to say how he got into government. That a certain former governor recommended him to the president, who then agreed to work with him. So that settles it for me as far as I'm concerned.
Right. But specifically, is there a rift between the president and the former governor of Lagos State, Bola Tinubu?
To the best of my knowledge, no. I have seen the president show deep respect for Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. I have seen the president even bend protocol to
receive him.
Yes.
So he still comes to the villa? He's a regular visitor there?
Yes, once there is an event that requires his coming, he does come. I have not seen any evidence of a rift, but I'm not involved deeply at the political end. I'm just a watcher, I'm just an observer. I'm not a politician, actually. So maybe there are things they see that I don't see, but I can talk about what I see, and I see respect for Asiwaju Tinubu from President Buhari.
Because I'm sure you know about all the stories and supporters of Asiwaju Tinubu saying that considering the role they think that Tinubu played in the emergence of President Buhari, they didn't think the president should have attended the final grand rally for Rotimi Akeredolu, senior advocate of Nigeria, and the APC governorship candidate in Ondo State, because Tinubu had cause to complain about the process surrounding his emergence through the primaries.
If anybody said that, I think such person was wrong, because the president himself emerged on the platform of a party. And no matter the position you hold, you are not bigger than the platform that produced you. And the platform was APC. So if APC was campaigning and somebody was standing on that same platform, it behoves the president to
be there,
to
support him.
Otherwise, he will be guilty of anti-party activities.
Who will charge President Buhari for anti-party activities? To be clear, the president is still on speaking terms with former Governor Bola Tinubu.
To the best of my knowledge.
But is there a disconnect between the president and the party? Some people seem to think that Mr. President does not take political activity very seriously. In times past, the ruling parties never lost any election. You knew that with this president in the seat, his party was going to win everything.
That was the trend. But still referring to that meeting with the GSG that you quoted earlier, you know, the president also said it, that if we can't conduct decent elections in this country, we have no reason to be in office. The trend in which the party at the center ruling won every election in the state also shows you something. They were manipulated. State power was used to win those elections. It was willy-nilly. The votes of the people did not matter. But President Buhari will never do that. He has said it before that if the only thing he achieves is bequeathing decent elections to this country, he's determined to do that. So any election that you see the APC win anywhere, know that it must have been won fair and square, and not because a president manipulated it from the center.
Or nudge the electoral box in one direction or the other.
Never. all those that hold those independent positions, is it INEC, is it EFCC, is it ICPC?
Yes.
The president never interferes with them. He never gives instructions. He never gives directives to them.
This is confusing for me. I read reactions, especially like in the early days of the Saraki trials at the Code of Conduct Tribunal, people saying Mr. President should intervene. We get a sense that Mr. President makes these midnight phone calls to the boss of EFCC and says,
not this president.
Move against this person.
Not this president. For instance, you can ask yourself, how come the EFCC was placid and almost sleepy at a certain point under a certain president? It was because they responded to maybe a stimulus coming from that president. Why did they suddenly wake up? Because they also responded to a stimulus from the president there. They know the direction he wants to go, and they are going in that direction. But in terms of issuing orders and directives, not this president.
Does he ever give any notion or any hint of what he would like? For instance, when you read like on the raid of the judges, just using that as an example, and people saying, they acted outside their powers. They didn't have the right to do those things. Does the president ever intervene in such a situation to say, Mr. Attorney General, or call whoever is relevant to brief him on the legality?
He does when it comes to that.
Right.
It depends a lot on the Attorney General when it comes to issues of law.
Yes.
Many times at the Federal Executive Council, issues have come up and he has said, Attorney General,
what is the law?
What is the position of the law?
And then perhaps the president will endear himself to the party. There are still over 600 ministries, departments, and agencies to be staffed by the president, and many members of the All Progressives Congress are looking to the president for those appointments. When will they happen?
I know that there are moves. You remember that the 24 progressive governors were at the villa recently to meet with the president. That was part of what they raised, and I can assure you that, yes, there's work in progress.
Has he changed his mind on the matter of restructuring, especially the national conference held by the former president?
No, he has disclosed his position on that national conference.
Right.
That he never agreed with it, he never believed in it, and he will not likely follow whatever recommendations. But we should not forget that part of the manifesto of the APC is restructuring of the country.
Right.
It's in the manifesto of the party. And another thing we must realize is that the lifespan of a democratic government in Nigeria is 4 years.
Yes.
There is nothing that says that all the things in your manifesto must be done in the first year or in the second year. The important thing is that you must look at them in the lifespan of the administration.
Okay. So, being a law-abiding president, he will abide by the manifesto of his party.
That is what his party promised.
Following the visit of some leaders from the Niger Delta region to Mr. President, is the president favorably disposed to their request for oil blocks?
Oil blocks is one of the 16 requests.
Yes.
You can't isolate one.
That was number one. And that's why everyone is focused. Perhaps if it was number 16 on the list, then we could reduce the value. But it was the first request on that list.
Well, I was at that event when the request was made.
Yes.
And the president has not discussed it either with me as a person or in any group in which I sat.
So, or with the Executive Council?
No, it has not come up at the Executive Council. So I will not be able to talk specifically on if he's disposed to granting that request or not. But what I can say is that the president is interested in peace returning fully to the Niger Delta.
But he will look at the 16 requests. I mean, he's taking them seriously.
Yes. Right. I think he has passed the request to
appropriate
quarters that will look at it and make further recommendations. And I'm sure eventually he may want to bring it to the Federal Executive Council and it will be discussed.
Can we then take it also that with the response of the presidency on the subject matter of 2019, that it is settled that the president will seek re-election in 2019.
Nothing was said about re-election in that response. Situated properly.
Yes.
An old associate of the president, they came through maybe APP, MPP, and CPC together.
Yes.
Now he granted an interview and he says, well, we don't see the president again. If myself, this person have not been able to see the president in recent days, who then sees him?
Yes.
And if he's not careful, the way he's going, by 2019, he may be alone. And the response to that was that there will be no time when President Buhari will be alone because the people will always be with him. It does not mean he's going to run in 2019.
Again in 2019.
If he's going to run, it's going to be his decision.
And we don't know that
Well,
yet.
we don't know that yet. And when he takes that decision, if he will run, it will be communicated to Nigerians because Nigerians are the electorate and the people are his largest supporters.
Yes.
So there is no way he would want to run again and he will not communicate to the people.
In a month's time, it will be the end of the year, 2016, and it will be about 19 months since he took office as president. What would you say has been the achievements of this administration so far?
If you want to assess a person or a government, you assess them based on promises they made.
Right.
And what were the promises this administration made? Three main. We will secure the country, we will revive the economy and create jobs, and we will fight corruption. Of those three, I think two are going splendidly.
Which two?
Securing the country, fighting corruption are going splendidly. The third area is a bit sticky, reviving the economy. But we will get there because you don't revive an economy that has been battered for so long by a sudden flight.
Yes.
It takes a while. It takes re-engineering. And there is a gestation period for that policy before you begin to see the fruits. But whether it will be done, I bet it with you, it will be done. The economy will be revived in the lifetime of this administration.
And so as we go into 2017, he will still focus on those 3 points.
Oh yes, because those tripod were what he stood on to come into power. I think throughout the tenure, those three will be very paramount to him.
Where are we now with the war against Boko Haram?
We're gone very far. A war is usually in phases. You have the shooting time,
Yes.
and then you have the mopping up time. I'll say we're in the mopping up time
Now.
The mopping up, there is engagement in terms of dialogue, which was what led to release of 21 Chibok school girls, and dialogue still continues. And then there is also mopping up in terms of armed engagement.
Yes.
You see that the Sambisa forest was the enclave in which the insurgents remained.
Yes.
But they are almost flushed out completely from
Now.
Sambisa forest.
And all those areas that where they were reigning supreme, has Nigeria reclaimed its sovereignty back
By
there?
the time this government came, they had 14 local governments firmly under their control.
Boko Haram.
Yes, in which they have planted their flags and they have declared those areas caliphates. They've been flushed out. They don't rule in a single local government in the country. There are pockets of skirmishes here and there.
Yes.
There are sneaky bombings and all that. But they are the wild kicks of a dying horse.
Right.
That horse.
We understand that youth corpers have started camp there in those areas again.
Gombe, in the past 2 years, Gombe didn't have an NYC orientation camp. This year they have.
In Gombe State?
In Gombe State. Previous 2 years, there was no NYC orientation in Gombe because of insurgency.
And was it in Gombe State? We also had many of the emirs had abandoned their
palaces. They are back. They not only abandoned their palaces, Boko Haram took over and sat on the emir's stool and were dispensing their own kind of justice.
Yes.
Dispensing their own kind of justice from those palaces. Now the emirs are back. Roads that are not function, Maduguri Damboa Road, for instance, for 3 years, that road has been closed. That road is in use now. People can say all sorts of things, but let the people in Maduguri, in Yola, and in other parts of Yobe tell you stories. Last 18 months, compared to the time before that, is just like comparing heaven and hell.
Of course, on the final note, Mr. Adesina, the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, turned 59 on Sunday, the 20th day of November. Many people say they didn't see felicitations from President Buhari.
Yeah, because they are not observant enough. Felicitations don't go out every day or for just any birthday.
Yes.
They go out for landmark birthdays.
Right, okay. So 59.
59. It's just a routine birthday, so to speak.
Yes.
If it was landmark, of course.
Okay,
If
so
it was 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, those are landmarks.
Okay.
And
not because
no,
of anything.
This government is too serious-minded to
Yes.
hold grudges. And why should you hold grudge when you have the longer part of the stick? The elections have come and gone. You have won.
Yes.
So why should you then still hold on to any grudge against the former president? No, not this government.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adesina, for
Thank
coming
you.
back on
Thank
the program
you.
with
Thank
me.
you.
Even though you didn't, you diplomatically avoided a lot of the questions. And thank you for watching. I'm Angela Ajetumobi.